You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. It's the Young Turks, it's Wednesday, but yet I'm gonna drop it. It's a power panel of 2. I don't know, I felt particularly powerful today. It's just me and Anna, but we're gonna do a very, very powerful show. This show, Anna, I dare say, might be a little too strong.
It will be too strong. It'll be too strong. We're gonna win. You're gonna get tired of winning by watching this show.
but actually, kind of literally on a day like today. And you know, of course, we're gonna talk about Roy Moore and Doug Jones in a minute. I have dramatic conclusions, which I think you'll enjoy. Strong opinions with Cenk Uygur. And lots of great stories in the rest of the rundown, including at the very end of the show. Don't miss this. A couple of Republicans switching to being in favor of net neutrality. What is this? So fascinating news today. But I also wanted to mention that on Rebel headquarters tonight, which is right after the Young Turks, as you know, it's 8:05 Eastern. 2 people are in the House here, 2 just Democratic candidates. And one of them is a guy I told you about, Kanyela Ng. He came all the way from Hawaii to be at Rebel headquarters, kind of literally. And he is the world beater, the one that took out a Tea Party Republican guy, knocked on 15,000 doors by himself, and beat an incumbent by 26 points when he was just 23 years old. Bit of a living legend already at the age of 28. He's gonna join us at Rebel headquarters. I think you guys are gonna love that conversation, so make sure you tune in for that. And I would be remiss if I were not to mention that it is in fact Christmas season, and for shoptyt.com, I still need you to panic. It's a little past panic time there, but that's all right, keep going. I was wearing my TYT Christmas sweater today. I didn't even realize it says, of course, on it, one of the sweaters. And I was like, oh, of course. Anyway, but mainly gift of membership. tytnetwork.com/gift gives you 3 months of membership to family and friends, put it in stocking stuffers, under the tree, etc. for just $25. Just $25, 3 months. tytnetwork.com/gift. Okay, now, without further ado, because we've had plenty of ado, Roy Moore versus Doug Jones, dramatic results.
Oh, did something happen? Did something happen last night?
I believe so.
All right. Alabama's special election to elect a new senator actually shocked me. I thought Roy Moore would win. Roy Moore did not win. In a stunning defeat, we actually had Doug Jones beat Roy Moore, and Roy Moore not too pleased with the results.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Did we get him?
Anna, I believe we got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Roy Moore. Down goes Roy Moore.
Yeah.
Down goes Roy Moore. And for the first time, that is said in a positive connotation. So,
whoa.
He has not conceded yet, but he will because he's a loser.
Yes.
So we're going to break down for you what happened here. Anna's going to give you the numbers, and then I want to talk about why it is that Doug Jones won. Because I think that there are a couple of really, really important lessons here that I think will affect voting in other parts of the country as well.
First, let me explain how the night went, how the election went, and how people were sitting at the edge of their seats. Because as the results were coming in, mind you, most of the earlier results were coming in from more rural parts of Alabama, and Roy Moore had a significant lead over Doug Jones. At that point, I decided I'm going to stop paying attention and go to yoga and meditate. Now, once yoga class was over, I was shocked to see headlines that indicated that Roy Moore did, in fact, lose and Doug Jones won, and it was because the later results were coming in from areas of Alabama that are predominantly black. And if you look at the demographics, you break down the demographics, you'll see that a whopping 96% of black voters voted in favor of Doug Jones. Now, I want to give you some more details into that and other demographics in just a second, but Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, so two things about that. Before I get to the African-American votes, my main reaction, first of all, during the voting was, I love it, and you see it going, and you know that it's not happening in real time. It's just a matter of when they count the votes. But first, Doug Jones is leading, right? Then Roy Moore takes a big lead, but that's because his counties were counted first, right? And then at the end, the important counties that were more in favor of Doug Jones gets counted, and he wins. And it looked like for a while that he had only won by 9,000 votes, by 0.7 points. That's when I did a video on it that you might have seen on YouTube. I went live on YouTube there, and then, but by the end he won by 1.5 points. So I know that Roy Moore is asking for a recount, but you only get a recount if it's within 0.5. And by the way, I really, really believe in recounts. I know they cost a little bit of money, but I don't think that's a big deal. It's just this margin was actually wide enough that you really don't need a recount. And even the Republican officials in Alabama are going, no, it's not going to make any difference at all. So my main reaction was one of tremendous relief. Yeah, it wasn't like, oh my God, Doug Jones got in and he's such a wonderful guy. You know, Doug Jones is great in some ways, which I'm going to get to in a sec. But so it's not a knock on him. It's just not like some,
for a progressive, he is not an exciting candidate. It's just that he is a decent candidate when you try to put him up against someone like Roy Moore, who, for the billionth time, I want to reiterate, has been accused of molesting women when they were teenagers. Yeah. So for me, this was not so much about politics, but trying to maintain some human decency in the country. That's what this election represented for me personally, because as we know, Alabama is a deeply red state, and it's not like any Democrat who does manage to get elected there is some crazy progressive. No, I just wanted this election to turn out the way that it did because I wanted to believe that there are people out there who will reject someone who has been accused of molestation.
Yeah, and so I had a sense of relief, not just for me. It wasn't that. It was more for America. That, hey, we're not. It turns out there is a bottom of the barrel. I keep talking about how the Republicans don't have a bottom of the barrel. We found the bottom. We found the bottom of the barrel. It turns out if you're against different religions, you don't believe in the Constitution, you're against black people, you're against Jews, as he did at the end, although he does have a Jew lawyer. That's what they said. That's unbelievable, right? And you do child molestation. Well, then we have found the bottom, right? And you know what? Maybe some of you won't believe this, but I breathed a deep sense of relief for Alabama. Because I want to believe in Alabama. Look, I look at the Alabama Republican voters and I get discouraged, right? I've seen the polling on their beliefs, etc. On the other hand, I love this country and I love the South and I want Alabama and Mississippi and Kentucky and all these different parts to do the right thing by themselves. Like it will actually help you not to have Roy Moore, etc. Now, but I'm not under the illusion that Doug Jones is, for example, going to make a policy difference on the tax cuts. They're in a panic right now to pass them anyway, and they will. But it was more of, thank God there is at least some decency in the voters more than anything else, which leads me back to the African-American vote in this race. Well, they voted in a greater percentage than their percentage of the population, meaning that their voter turnout was above average, above their representation, and made the 1.5% difference.
Yes.
And why? It goes to my central thesis. If you get people excited and give them a reason to vote, they will show up and vote for you. And voter turnout is the most important thing, not how the state is broken down, because the state Alabama is deeply Republican. If you just gone on based on, on those percentages, Roy Moore would have won. But more Democrats, more African Americans showed up to vote for Doug Jones. So why? Even though he's not the world's biggest progressive or anything. Partly because Doug Jones stood up for black people. He convicted members of the Klan who had murdered innocent black people in Alabama. He stood up for them, so they stood up for him. See, it's not that complicated. You actually deliver for the voters and they deliver for you. Don't yell at the voters, do something for them. And in this case, Doug Jones did something wonderful for them, and they led him to victory. That's exactly how democracy is supposed to work.
Right, and obviously, doing something for your voters, for your constituents, will convince them to go to the polls and vote for you. But I'm sure it also helped Doug Jones that Roy Moore was openly against amendments to the Constitution that did away with slavery, those types of things. Like Roy Moore was very openly hateful towards specific groups of people, specifically black people. And so I don't think that was the primary reason why they went to the polls. I do think that they did want to go out there and support Doug Jones, considering his past and what he managed to accomplish. But I also want to draw some attention to other trends that we saw in this election that helped put Doug Jones over the edge, because a 1.5 margin is not that big, right?
No, it's small, very small.
And so the black vote absolutely mattered. But you know what also mattered? The Republican women who decided, no, I'm staying home, right? And also the Republican women who flipped and decided to vote for Doug Jones. So we'll get to those numbers in just a second. Overall turnout was 40.4%, okay? Which sounds low, but it was a special election. Usually special elections and midterm elections don't draw many voters to the polls, so it's pretty significant. Now, while 99% of voters who favored Democratic-controlled Senate-backed Jones, a slightly smaller 91% of those who favored Republican control backed Moore. Jones's 6% support among that group helped him make up the difference. Okay, so the people who identify as Republicans would prefer to have a Republican senator in that seat decided, no, we can't have Roy Moore. So they decided to vote against him.
So before you get too encouraged about Alabama Republicans, understand that 91% of them held. They held for Roy Moore, and they didn't mind the molestation. They didn't mind all that stuff. They were still on board. But all of that attention paid to that issue, among others, all of his other issues and problems, etc. It stripped away, 9%, 6% of which went to Doug Jones, and that's your 1.5% difference.
Right.
So it did make a difference. That's why fighting back and doing aggressive campaigning makes a giant difference. A lot of times Democrats play patty cakes, and they say, oh no, civility is more important. No, making sure the other guy loses is more important. So, and they did a great job of that here. Credit where credit is due.
All right, so let's go through some of the other poll results that I found fascinating. Let's take a quick look at gender. If you look at the male voters, which accounted for 49% of the voters in this election, 42% of them supported Jones, 56% of them supported Roy Moore. So when it came to the male voters, the majority of them did favor Moore, but it flipped when it came to women. 57% of the female voters supported Jones, 41% supported Moore.
And look, 51% of the voters were women. So they showed up to vote. It made all the difference.
Right. Let's take a look at sex by race. So men and women based on their race. When it came to white men, 26% of them voted for Jones. 72% voted for Moore. When it came to white women, 34% were in favor of Jones, while 63% were in favor of Moore. So, the focus on white women, I want to kind of elaborate on that in just a second, but when you compare the white vote to the black vote, you see a world of difference. With black men, 93% of them were supportive of Jones. With black women, 98% were supportive of Jones. So overwhelmingly, the black vote went in favor of Doug Jones. Now, let's talk about white Republican women in the state of Alabama. I thought this was actually pretty interesting. 58% of Alabama women voted for the winner, Democrat Doug Jones, including 35% of white women, according to exit polling. It's more than twice the 16% of white Alabama women who voted for President Barack Obama in 2012. So while the percentage that I showed you is still disheartening, 63% is pretty high, you do see Republican women now kind of realizing there's something going on with the Republican Party they don't like. So more of them voted in favor of Jones compared to the percentage of them who voted for Barack Obama.
So again, as we're encouraged on a day like this, still an overwhelming majority of the white folks in Alabama voted for Roy Moore. With all of the things that we have discussed that are his problems, they still voted for him in big numbers. But that number going from 16% of white women voting for the Democratic candidate to now 34%, well, you can do the math on that. That's more than doubled. And that's a giant difference and definitely another thing that swung this election. If you had not reached white women who normally vote Republican, you wouldn't have won. By the way, that goes to my thesis number 2. And how many times did I say on the show, at some point, Trump and these Republicans are going to lose that mom in Kansas?
You did say that. However, I don't want to get too encouraged by what just happened because I do see this special election as a bit of an anomaly. And what I mean by that is, who knows? There might be, just a plethora of Republican candidates who are accused of similar things. I don't think so, but this was a very unique election where you had this guy who was banned from malls in Alabama because he was chasing after teenage girls, who was accused by multiple women of molestation when they were teenagers. I think that's what turned them off. I don't think it's necessarily Roy Moore's policies.
Well, so real quick, 2 points on that. One is that I just read a poll earlier in the week that Trump's approval rating among white Republican women has dropped by 5 points in the country, nationwide. And 5 points is a big, big drop in a short period of time. So he is losing them on a national level. It's not just Roy Moore. On the other hand, for all the people, I agree with you, Anna, that all the people who are saying these results are shocking, unbelievable, miraculous. No, it's not miraculous. The election was close to 50-50 on election night because of the anomaly that Roy Moore is a particularly monstrous candidate.
Right.
It wasn't like a normal election in Alabama where a Democrat beat a Republican.
Yes. So I'd like to just quickly focus a little bit on the voters based on their education level and where they were likely to fall based on how educated they were. Also very interesting here. Now, when you look specifically at college graduates, which accounted for 44% of the voters, 54% of these individuals voted in favor of Doug Jones, 43% voted in favor of Moore. When it came to non-college graduates, the numbers were a little different, 47% in favor of Doug Jones, 52% in favor of Roy Moore. So the more educated, at least formally educated, the voters were, the more likely they were to vote in favor of Doug Jones. Now let's look at education by race and gender. When it came to white college graduate women, 45% voted for Jones, 52% voted for Moore. So the more educated white women were in the state, the more likely they were to vote in favor of Roy Moore, which is fascinating. When it came to white non-college graduate women, 25% voted for Jones, 73% voted for Moore. With white men, if they were college educated, 35% voted for Jones, 62% voted for Moore. Non-college graduate men, 19% voted for Jones, 79% voted for Moore.
Okay, I just want to talk about, we'll talk about Trump's reaction, all that stuff in a second, but I want to talk about one last group here. So there was one other group that made a difference in this election, and it was young voters. In fact,
what did I tell you, though? What did I tell you?
You told me this?
No, I did tell you this, because whenever I get down about what's happening in the country, I remember the homies. Right? Like, I remember the people in my demographic who grew up in the information age, who do their own research, who are the cord cutters, who want to investigate things, who are suspect of anything that they're told, right? They're paying attention, and they're different. Even if they identify as evangelicals, they're different from the generations before them, and that gives me hope. But
yeah, so now, in this election, in the deep, deep red state of Alabama, 13% of the voters were aged 18 to 29, and 22% of the voters were aged 30 to 44. So you put those together, it's 35%, a little over a third of the voters are under the age of 45, okay? And how do they vote? As you see there, 60% of 18 to 29-year-olds voted for Jones, and 61% of 30 to 44-year-olds did. So in essence, a little over 60% of people under the age of 45 in Alabama voted for the Democrat. Let me repeat that. In the reddest state in the country, people under the age of 45 voted 60% in favor of the Democrat. Let me tell you something, okay? And every year this gets worse for the Republicans. So we can do another trademark Young Turks gesture here. Now, when you've lost some of the Republican women you used to count on, and you're starting to reel, when you get high Democratic turnout, when they get excited about voting for someone, usually progressives, the Republicans are in big, big trouble. But now that every day there is more younger people who are progressives, significantly so, even 60% in Alabama. Here's what I have to say to the Republican Party very, very soon. Let's go to a wide shot. Anna? Bye-bye. You guys are toast. We have the younger generation in Alabama. We have them in Alabama. What are you going to do? Go, run. See if you can find more 68-year-olds, 78-year-olds, 88-year-olds. Yes, for people above the age of 65 in Alabama, they voted 60% for Roy Moore. Have at it, Hoss. Have at it. The old, aging, white, Christian, evangelical male vote in the South is all you got left. In a poll today, Donald Trump's down to 32%. You guys are in more trouble than you know what to do with. You have no idea what kind of trouble you're in if you're the Republican Party. And it's aided and abetted accidentally by the press, because they're so obsessed with things that are binary. Who won, who lost? Trump won, so the Republicans must be ascendant. No, look at all of the underlying numbers, right? Trump barely won. He lost a popular vote to a deeply, deeply unpopular establishment elitist candidate.
No, Cenk. Undocumented immigrants voted for Hillary, that's why.
Okay,
yeah.
So look, man, we run progressives against these Republicans. We're gonna clean their clock. We're gonna get voter turnout, and we're gonna rout them. I said it right after the election when everybody thought I was crazy. I'm gonna keep on saying it. In the year 2020, if we have a progressive Democratic candidate, and I believe we will, we're gonna win 42 states. Right now, I tell you, go say that to anyone in Washington. They'll laugh and laugh and laugh.
That sounds a little crazy.
Yeah, even
right?
Okay,
42 states.
Even everybody in here is saying crazy.
Come on.
42 states. Hear me now. Quote me later.
I hear you now. Probably won't quote you later. Or if I quote you later, it's to brag about how I was right.
Oh, by the way, I should note because I'm the most fair man in America. I lost the bet on this, and thanks God. So I'm now like 22-2 in election bets. So Ben and I in an old school episode bet on this, and I bet on Roy Moore winning because I thought, Alabama Republicans will stick with him. And 91% of them stuck with him, but it was just enough for Doug Jones to win. It's going to be the best $20 I ever paid Ben Mankiewicz.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Doug Jones, Roy Moore, their thoughts. And later on in the show, we will also hear from Steve Bannon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Steve Bannon. But, I have different thoughts on that. One, we're going to rub it in. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. Alt-right, brace for impact. But two, I also have a slightly different take than the rest of the media on that. So we'll come right back and tell you about that. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you. Let's go to some tweets here at #TYT Live. Shorty24 says, haha, Jimmy Dore, that's a great little promo. I just gifted TYT subscription to my boss.
Oh.
Giving her a little intro to Rebel headquarters. Love you guys. Happy holidays. Thank you, Shorty. We appreciate that. Referring to ad we ran during the live show where Jimmy talks about giving the gift of TYT. So you know that's $25, 3 months of membership. Give it to family and friends or even your boss or coworkers. That's tytnetwork.com/gift. So thank you for doing that. Memo760 says, fighting against progressive ideas is like skydiving. You can slow them down, but you'll eventually reach the ground. And that's right. As Martin Luther King talked about, the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. And we are slowly headed towards justice. Sasha Ray says, I somewhat miss Jenko Unchained being mad as hell, but the audio video quality has improved light years from back then. So upsides and downsides, that's true. And Beth says, well, no one can say Cenk isn't passionate about facts, people, and politics. Thank you, Beth. I think that's a fair statement. All right, now, next story is really, really interesting and important. It is about Salma Hayek and Harvey Weinstein, as Anna's about to tell you, but I think it's about a lot more than that. And so we'll explain the facts, and then I'll tell you why I think it's monumental.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Salma Hayek recently wrote a piece for the New York Times where she, in a very detailed manner, talked about her relationship with Harvey Weinstein and the abuse that she had to deal with in making the movie about Frida Kahlo earlier in the early 2000s. And this is a story that she had never shared publicly before. And even after dozens of women came forward with sexual assault allegations against Harvey Weinstein, she still wasn't convinced that it was a good idea to share her story. But now she is detailing it in a way that I think is incredibly powerful and shows the level of manipulation that Harvey Weinstein used in order to get sexual favors from women, specifically actresses. Here's what she had to write. I had brainwashed myself into thinking that it was over and that I had survived. I hid from the responsibility to speak out with the excuse that enough people were already involved in shining a light on my monster. I didn't consider my voice important, nor did I think it would make a difference. Also, she referenced the word monster there, and it's also used in the headline of her piece. She wrote, Harvey Weinstein is my monster too.
So Anna's going to give you more quotes here, but this is not just a piece for women, although it is monumentally important for women. But it's also for guys too, because I came to a really important conclusion about guys like Harvey Weinstein. And I don't mean just the extreme monster that he happens to be, and he's, according to the allegations, literally a rapist, let alone all the terrible things he's done and the extreme sexual harassment. But he's literally sexually assaulted people as bad as you can imagine. And I don't, if he never gets arrested, we have no justice in this country. We at least have a 2 different justice systems. So, but let Anna finish, and then I'll come back and tell you why I think it's so important for all of us.
So Salma Hayek was inspired by the story of Frida Kahlo, and she really wanted to make a movie about her, profiling her, and also playing the role of Frida Kahlo. And so she had approached Harvey Weinstein about the project, and she was surprised and excited when he said yes, because she was an actress from Mexico, and she was told over and over again that she's not good enough, she's not talented enough, that she's a nobody. And so here's Harvey Weinstein, a powerful man who said, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and pursue this project. She wrote about it. I was so excited to work with him and that company. In my naivete, I thought my dream had come true. He had validated the last 14 years of my life. He had taken a chance on me, a nobody. He had said yes. But then she follows it with this line. Little did I know it would become my turn to say no. No to me taking a shower with him. No to letting him watch me take a shower. No to letting him give me a massage. No to letting a naked friend of his give me a massage. No to letting him give me oral sex. No to getting naked with another woman. And with every refusal came Harvey's Machiavellian rage. And so he knew that this movie meant a lot to her, and he used it and basically dangled it over her head as a way of pursuing her sexually and encouraging her to engage in sexual favors. And, I highly recommend you guys read the full piece, because she gets into the details of what he made her do. But it essentially culminated in him forcing her to do a sex scene naked with another female actress that she didn't want to do. And she felt so sick about it, she had to take a tranquilizer before the scene to calm down. She was vomiting, she was super uncomfortable, but she wanted to do the movie so badly. And there were so many friends and supporters behind the scenes that helped it come to fruition that she felt like it was her responsibility and obligation to just go through with it.
Yeah, so let's dive in. Okay, so first of all, Salma Hayek saying these things about Harvey Weinstein would have been monumental, world-shaking news a month ago or whenever the Weinstein stuff started. It's still big news today, but that's the least of this story. There's 2 other layers to it that are much more important. First of all, I know we've talked about it a decent amount on the show, but this tidal wave of women coming forward and telling what has happened to them is a cultural change. Mm-hmm. And it's the hardest kind of change there is. So sometimes you can get political change, electoral change, sometimes you can get policy changes. But a cultural change, that sticks. Mm-hmm. That's as big as it gets. And here we have a cultural change, and as she said, here, let me see if I have that last part of the article for you, because I found it so important. She said, men sexually harassed because they could. Women are talking today because in this new era, we finally can. So for all this time, and if you're a guy, you didn't know it, but women, so many women, not all women, but so many women kept this stuff hidden, and they had been abused and humiliated and put upon and done all these things, and they kept it bottled up and bottled up. So when they come out now and they come forward with their stories, it is a moment where they get to finally be free. Mm-hmm. So you can't overstate the importance of that. And so, as we've said in almost every one of these stories, it doesn't mean that every woman is right. Doesn't mean every guy is guilty. Nobody's saying any of that. What we're saying is it is an important watershed moment in American, I don't know if it's too grand to say world history, but where 50% of the people in this country are being liberated in a sense. They finally don't have to take it anymore. So if it was just that, it'd already be world changing. But I think there's a second layer to it. As I read it, I think she wrote it in a brilliant way, and it actually reached me in a way that the other accounts had, and you can go back and watch all the videos, but I think this was even more powerful than others. And I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on why, but it really got to my core. And one of the things that I got from it was not the male-female dynamic, but also gaslighters. Now, gaslighting is a term that I was kind of uncomfortable with, and I think that people use it in a couple of different ways, but the technical definition of it, and what I'm referring to is people in your life, so this applies to all of us, that are manipulative. And they do it on purpose, and they make you feel bad about it. I don't know about you guys, but I've had it happen to me a lot. And actually, it's easier to do it to people who are nice, because they have a natural inclination to want to agree, to want to say yes. It's kind of hard to say no. And manipulative people who gaslight others, they do it on purpose. And they put you in awkward situations where it's hard to say no. And they do it to take advantage of you. And I think we all collectively have to say enough, no. When it makes sense, you've got to say no. And so I don't want to be manipulated anymore, and I'm tired of all these tricks and games that people play.
Right.
And as you see Weinstein doing it, I was like, oh my God, that's right, this is the playbook. In my tiny, tiny way, I've also dealt with this throughout my life with guys like this. And by the way, women like this, because either side can do manipulation, right? And so as Anna was pointing out, he says, oh, come on, I'm going to help your career. I'm going to give you wonderful things and you're going to be a star, etc. Then once she's already too far in and they've already shot for 5 weeks and she already went through hell to get this, then he starts to say, well, now give me this, now give me this. And if you don't do it, I'm taking everything away. And then the last part of it is, he doesn't say, because I'm choosing to do this. He puts it on her like it's your fault. It's it's your choice. If you're not having sex with me, you're the one who ruined all these people's lives and ruined this project.
Right. I mean, the level of gaslighting and manipulation that happened specifically with that movie that she cared so deeply about was just horrendous. She writes that the range of his persuasion tactics went from sweet-talking me to that one time when, in an attack of fury, he said the terrifying words, "I will kill you, don't think I can't." And he had this problem with the movie because, look, Frida Kahlo had a unibrow. Frida Kahlo was an artist, right? And I guess Harvey Weinstein didn't find her sexy. And so Salma Hayek played the role appropriately with a unibrow. And Harvey Weinstein's like, what is this? There's no sex appeal. And that's why he kept pushing for that sex scene. And, since he kept dangling the movie over her head like this, she just wanted to get it done. She wanted it to finally happen and be done with it. This is what she also writes about that. He told me that the only thing I had going for me was my sex appeal and that there was none of that in this movie. So he told me he was going to shut down the film because no one would want to see me in that role. By the way, that movie actually received 6 Oscars nominations and won 2 Oscars.
And afterwards, of course, Harvey Weinstein took all the credit.
Yeah.
And part of the reason he wanted that sex scene in the movie was not just so that it would make the movie better in his eyes, because he wanted to see Salma Hayek naked with another woman. And he tried in every way, and then until he finally insisted that it be in the movie, and that if it wasn't in the movie, he was going to ruin her career, and he's going to take away jobs from all those people and never have that movie and come to fruition. This is what bad guys do. This is what manipulators do. And I'm telling you, in your own personal life, it doesn't matter what gender you are. If someone is manipulating you like that, recognize it and stand up to them. And you can do it politely. But no, I'm done with it. No, I'm not going to do what you want, and you're not going to get me to feel bad for doing something reasonable. You're the one asking me to do something unreasonable, and I'm not going to take it anymore. So this has been the greatest of movements. And I know that it's not perfect and that there's, issues around the edges, etc. But overall, what a wonderfully liberating moment.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Omarosa has left the White House. We'll tell you why and give you more news.
And that drama is great because they have two different versions of what happened. And you're going to love it. It's a perfect soap opera, but inside the Trump White House. Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk, and I'll see you soon.